Chapter 1356. On the flat official road, a group of people were galloping on their horses. It was the group that had left Mount Wudu not long ago. Cheng Mingyue looked at Zhu Yu, who had been silent since they left and seemed to be in a bad mood. She thought for a while and walked over to him while everyone was resting. "Senior." She passed him a water bag. "Have some water." Zhu Yu glanced at her but did not take it. "I have some here, thank you." He pointed at his horse. Everyone was equipped with a water skin. Cheng Mingyue bit her lips and did not leave. She sat beside Zhu Yu. Zhu Yu glanced at her and moved away slightly. "Junior sister Cheng, men and women should not touch each other. It is better for us to avoid arousing suspicion." Cheng Mingyue's face turned pale. She seemed to be in a bad mood, but more than that, she was sad. Her senior was not willing to be close to her even though he had lost his memory. She said in a low voice, "I have been under master's tutelage since I was young and grew up with senior. What is there to avoid?" Zhu Yu said calmly, "Even if we are senior and junior, there is no such thing as avoiding men and women." How could he not see that this junior sister of his had other intentions towards him? Cheng Mingyue had never concealed her admiration for Zhu Yu. In fact, before Zhu Yu lost his memory, Cheng Mingyue had always thought that she would be the one to stand beside Zhu Yu and become the Alliance Master's wife. Cheng Mingyue was not the only one who thought so. Many people in the martial arts world thought so too. In the martial arts world, who else could match up to Fairy Mingyue in terms of reputation and martial arts? However, Zhu Yu had always treated this junior sister who had grown up with him as a younger sister. The two of them fell into silence. After a while, some people started to get up. They had rested enough and were ready to set off again. Zhu Yu also got up and said to Cheng Mingyue, "Junior sister Cheng, we are about to set off." Cheng Mingyue suddenly said, "Senior martial brother, do you know that junior martial sister has always admired you?" After all, she was only a 17-year-old girl. When she said this, Cheng Mingyue's face turned pink. She was born beautiful and this gesture was undoubtedly very seductive. However, Zhu Yu merely glanced at her and said, "Although Zhu Yu has lost his memories, he still knows his own thoughts." From the beginning to the end, Zhu Yu had no romantic feelings for junior sister Cheng. After he finished speaking, he no longer looked at Cheng Mingyue and mounted the horse. Cheng Mingyue was left standing there alone. The pink on her face had yet to fade when she was shocked by Zhu Yu's merciless words. If it was the previous Zhu Yu, he would definitely not have said such cold words. After losing his past memories, Zhu Yu indeed had less scruples. Mu Qingfeng saw that his little disciple was still standing there and couldn't help but shout loudly, "Mingyue, time to go." Cheng Mingyue came back to her senses and responded in a low voice. Then she mounted her horse and the group left again. Not long after they left, a figure slowly walked over from afar. She seemed to be walking very slowly, as if she was admiring flowers on a spring day. However, just a moment ago she was still very far away, and in the next second she was already in front of him. If there was a martial artist here, he would definitely be speechless at this superb qigong. This person was Gu Shengyin, who had followed this group of martial artists all the way from Mount Wudu. Chapter 1357. She thought that she had nothing to do and was worried about Zhu Yu. Besides, the target of the mission, Cheng Mingyue, was also here, so she decided to follow them. Logically speaking, in the martial arts world, there were many people who had achieved perfection in qigong. However, no one dared to use qigong to chase after a horse like Gu Shengyin. It was not that their martial arts were not good enough, but their bodies could not keep up. Let's not talk about whether the true energy in the body would be exhausted. Even if the body was strong, the body of an ordinary martial artist would not be able to withstand such high consumption. However, Gu Shengyin was not worried about this problem at all. She had obtained a powerful skill in this world, which was an S-grade physique strengthened by the genetic stock solution. This physique was at the top of the pyramid in the Great Milky Way era. If it was in this world, Gu Shengyin had tried using ordinary swords and knives. At most, it could only leave a white mark on the surface of her skin. In other words, unless it was a divine weapon, the ordinary weapons in this world would not be able to hurt her at all. Even the most powerful golden bell shield and iron skin technique could not reach this level. Gu Xingyin even had an interesting thought. Even if Cheng Mingyue wanted to poison her again in this world, she probably would not be able to do it. That delicate little worm could not break through her body's defenses. When it was almost dark, Zhu Yu and the others finally saw an inn. The owner of the inn was obviously experienced and knowledgeable. When he saw that they were a group of martial artists, he did not panic like ordinary innkeepers. "Innkeeper, prepare 3 tables of food and 8 rooms for us." The person who spoke was Cheng Mingyue. Cheng Mingyue was the only woman in their group. Naturally, she would have a room for herself. Mu Qingfeng would have 1 room. Zhu Yu, who had lost her memory and did not like to interact with people, would have 1 room. The remaining 5 rooms would be given to the other martial artists. The others did not have any objections to such an arrangement. However, the innkeeper was a little embarrassed. To be honest, there are only 8 rooms in this small inn. Today, a guest has already booked 1 room. As he spoke, he looked at a person in the corner. It was a woman who was eating alone with her back facing everyone. Judging from his back, his looks shouldn't be too bad. There weren't many people in this inn. Today, other than Cheng Mingyue's group, the entire inn only had that woman and 2 guests at another table. It was relatively quiet. However, the woman didn't turn her head when she heard the conversation. It was as if what they were talking about had nothing to do with her. Of course, it was also possible that she simply did not place them in her eyes at all. Either way, it was unbearable for Cheng Mingyue, who was used to being high and mighty all year round. However, she would not make a fuss like those brainless women. Instead, he leisurely walked in front of that person and said, "Miss, our group has gone through a long and arduous journey. Would Miss be willing to give up the upper room? I'm willing to pay double." Zhu Yu frowned. It was true that they had traveled a long distance, but it didn't mean that they couldn't stay in other rooms besides the best ones. Why did they have to fight for other people's rooms? However, he had not recovered his memories and felt that he was a little unfamiliar with this group of people in front of him, so it was not good for him to speak up and stop them. As she spoke, Cheng Mingyue finally saw the woman's face clearly. She couldn't help but let out a sound. Chapter 1358. She saw that the right half of the woman's face was smooth and white, very beautiful, but the left half of her face was full of potholes and hideous scars, looking very terrifying. With her shout, everyone's eyes focused on her. That woman also turned her face, exposing her whole face to Cheng Mingyue's eyes. She only heard her say coldly, "I have traveled a long way to come here alone, and I also need a good rest. Miss, please go back." Her voice was very hoarse, and when she spoke, it was like someone was using a small hook to scratch at the tip of one's heart, making one couldn't help but shiver. With such a clear rejection, normal people wouldn't say anything more. But Cheng Mingyue was different. She looked innocent and cute on the surface, but her personality was actually the most overbearing. If she wanted something, she wouldn't be willing to give up if she couldn't get it. Cheng Mingyue looked at Gu Xingyin with some difficulty, "But miss, there are more than 10 of us. It's impossible for others to sleep in the upper rooms, and leave one person to sleep in another room, right? That's not fair." She frowned, as if this matter really made it difficult for her. But her eyes were looking at Gu Xingyin. If this woman knew what she meant, she would obediently give up the room. Cheng Mingyue suddenly felt gloomy. Why didn't Master let her introduce herself? If she said who she was, who her master was, and who her senior brother was, this woman would have taken the initiative to give up the room to them. Then she saw the woman looking at her, with obvious ridicule on her face, as if she saw through all the little thoughts in her heart. "Miss, if you are in a difficult position, you can stay in another room and let others stay in the upper rooms. How is it difficult? Or is it that?" Gu Xingyin cast a glance at her, but her hoarse voice sounded in the entire inn, "Miss, you feel that you are a cut above others, and others can stay in the other rooms, but you can't?" Cheng Mingyue's face turned ashen. Of course she looked down on the other rooms, but she couldn't say this out loud, otherwise the perfect image she had painstakingly built for so many years would definitely be ruined. Moreover, in her life, this was the second time she met someone who didn't give her face. The first one was the demon sect leader. Thinking of that woman whose beauty overshadowed her own, Cheng Mingyue's heart was filled with a trace of resentment. Along with it, she looked at the woman in front of her with even more disdain. She looked at Gu Shengyin and said in disbelief, "Miss, why are you so mean? I've always treated you with respect, and I've also seriously asked for your opinion. Why are you being so overbearing?" The woman snorted coldly and turned around. Clearly, she couldn't be bothered with her. Cheng Mingyue didn't expect her to be like this. She stood there, not knowing whether to leave or stay. Fortunately, a godly assist appeared at this moment. There were many admirers of Cheng Mingyue among the group of martial artists. Now that they saw their goddess being bullied, they only felt that the sense of justice in their hearts was about to overflow from their chests. He arrived in front of the table in a few steps and was about to open the eyes of the goddess. When he saw the woman's face, he instantly felt more confident. "You ugly freak, Miss Mingyue is such a gentle girl, how can you speak so viciously?" The woman was clearly annoyed as she coldly shouted, "Whose dog is this, barking non-stop in my ear?" Chapter 1359. As soon as she said that, the man who stood up for his goddess could not hold it in any longer. He immediately drew his sword and shouted, "I thought you were a woman and wanted to be polite to you. But it turns out that there are differences between women and men. Today, I will teach you how to speak properly." The long sword in his hand flashed and he slashed at the table in front of the woman. The woman looked at him coldly. This man was a little stupid, but he was not evil. The sword was so fast that it even brought up a gust of wind. It was obvious that this man's skills were not bad. However, in the next moment he was sent flying. He was actually thrown out by someone. Other than Zhu Yu and Mu Qingfeng, no one saw the mysterious woman's actions clearly. It was also at this moment that Cheng Mingyue felt a little scared. This was because she realized that this woman seemed to be much more powerful than she had expected. The mysterious woman looked at Cheng Mingyue, who was standing at the side, and sneered, "What a gentle and kind Miss Mingyue." Everyone could hear the sarcasm in her words. The mysterious woman stood up, turned around, and headed upstairs. What a bummer. A table full of good food had to be smelled by someone. It was obvious who was the culprit behind the smelly dishes. The other two people sitting at the table realized that they could not afford to offend either party. They sat there quietly and ate. Although no one said anything, Cheng Mingyue felt that these people must be laughing at her in their hearts. She dug her nails into her palms and used the pain to suppress the urge to rush up and chop this woman into pieces. Calm down, Cheng Mingyue. Taking revenge personally was the most foolish thing to do. What was the most powerful ability of a woman? It was to make a man willingly and obediently do things for her. So she looked at Zhu Yu with an aggrieved expression. Based on the strength that this woman had shown, only her senior brother and master had a chance of defeating her. However, Zhu Yu only looked at the staircase with a strange gaze, and then directly said to the innkeeper, "Just prepare an ordinary room for me." Cheng Mingyue panicked when she heard that. "Senior brother, how can you sleep in an ordinary room?" Zhu Yu said curiously, "This room is prepared for people to stay in. Why can't I stay in it if others can?" His words were actually the same as the mysterious woman's. This also showed his attitude towards this matter. He did not approve of Cheng Mingyue's actions. Cheng Mingyue's face paled for a while. She never thought that her senior brother would not give her any face in front of so many people. Zhu Yu, on the other hand, didn't think too much about it. His attention was now on another matter. In the dead of night, a door suddenly made a very soft sound. If it was an ordinary person, they definitely wouldn't have noticed it. However, whether it was the people inside or outside the door, none of them were ordinary people. The moment Zhu Yu entered the room, she saw a woman sitting quietly at the table by the window. It was obvious that she had been waiting for a long time. His gentle face immediately broke into a joyful smile. If Cheng Mingyue saw it, she would probably die of anger. She had put in so much effort, but all she got in return was Zhu Yu's indifference. However, Zhu Yu revealed such a joyful expression the moment he saw this woman. Chapter 1360. In order to avoid being noticed, there was no light in the room. However, whether it was Zhu Yu or that woman, both of them could see each other clearly. If there were other people here, they would be very surprised to find that the person who lived in this room was a woman with half of her face destroyed. However, the person sitting at the table was clearly a woman with complete facial features. No, it was not appropriate to say that she was complete. She was obviously a woman with perfect facial features. She sat by the window, and the gauzy moonlight shone on her face through the window. There was a kind of beauty that did not belong to the mortal world. Zhu Yu smiled and walked to her side. He hugged her without any hesitation. "Were you waiting for me?" "That's right." The woman with half of her face scarred in the day was Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin glanced at him and did not struggle. "Maybe I was waiting for you, maybe I wasn't waiting for you." Zhu Yu knew what she meant. She wanted to see if he could recognize her. Although Gu Xingyin was confident in her lover, she was still very happy when Zhu Yu really recognized her. Of course, she was also curious. "How did you recognize me?" She thought that her disguise was very good. Zhu Yu sniffed her hair and said softly, "No matter what you look like, I can recognize you at a glance. Other than you, who else can make me lose control of my heart at first sight?" To Zhu Yu, there seemed to be something on Wu Yeli's body that was firmly attracting him. It was not some kind of drug-controlling method, but some kind of shackle in the soul. She was born to belong to him. He was very sure of this. Gu Xingyin smiled softly. "Maybe we were a couple in our previous life?" Zhu Yu had never believed in such things, but when he heard Gu Xingyin's words, he felt that it was very reasonable. He nodded. "It must be the same. Next time, let's go to the Moon Temple and let him bless us so that we can be together forever." Gu Xingyin could not help but laugh. This man is really good at saying sweet nothings. However, she liked it this way. Just like that, the two of them hugged each other quietly, enjoying the warm feeling of their breaths blending together in the darkness. "That's right." Zhu Yu suddenly spoke. "Why are you here?" He was a little puzzled. Gu Xingyin did not answer. If she couldn't even figure out such a simple thing, then there was no need to ask her. She could just go and figure it out herself. Zhu Yu found it strange that Gu Xingyin did not reply. However, a thought that made him ecstatic appeared in his mind. He asked cautiously, "For me?" There was still no reply. However, Zhu Yu already knew the answer. The corners of his mouth curled up as if fireworks were blooming in his heart. He couldn't help but hug the person in his arms tighter, but he heard Gu Xingyin complain, "Be gentle, I can't breathe." When Zhu Yu heard that, he loosened his embrace a little and lowered his head to whisper in Gu Xingyin's ear. Gu Xingyin's ears turned red, and she snorted softly, "I used to hear those people from the Central Plains praise you as an upright gentleman. If they knew that a gentleman like you not only sneaked into a woman's room at night, but also said such things, I wonder what they would think?" Chapter 1361. Zhu Yu lowered his head and chuckled. "Who cares what they think? What does it have to do with you and me what others think?" Gu Xingyin stopped talking. Zhu Yu was right. Both of them were the top figures in the martial arts world. What did the thoughts of others have to do with them? Unknowingly, it was already late at night. Gu Xingyin urged Zhu Yu to leave quickly. "You still have to travel tomorrow. Go and rest." Zhu Yu was reluctant to leave, but he knew that he was not the only one who had to travel. She would follow him as well. She also needed to rest. He let go of her and whispered into Gu Xingyin's ear, "I'm leaving." Like a gust of wind, the man disappeared from the room in the blink of an eye. Gu Xingyin let out a sigh of relief when the man's aura disappeared completely. She reached out her hand and touched her numb ears. Really, this man was not serious at all. The system, who had been watching silently, said, "Host, can you wipe that sweet smile off your face and let's talk properly?" The system, who was single, felt helpless when it saw the host and her partner being like this every day. In principle, as a system, it did not have the 7 emotions and 6 desires of a human. Gu Xingyin lay on the bed and soon fell asleep. She had a very sweet dream. In the dream, the man kept whispering into her ear, "You will be my baby for life." The next day, when Cheng Mingyue and the rest woke up, they realized that the mysterious woman had already disappeared. Cheng Mingyue had been holding a grudge against her. She was so angry that she did not sleep last night. She kept thinking about how to teach her a lesson. Who would have thought that the woman would disappear just like that? She went to the hotel and asked the hotel owner. The result was that the mysterious customer had checked out and left at dawn. Cheng Mingyue was furious, but there was nothing she could do. She could only swear in her heart that she would not meet this woman again. Otherwise, she would teach her a lesson. It was a pity that she would not be able to meet that woman again in this lifetime. This was because Gu Shengyin had prepared many disguises. Along the way, other than Zhu Yu, no one knew that someone had been following them silently. Sometimes she was a weak girl with a pitiful background. Sometimes she was an old woman with wrinkled skin. Sometimes she was even a hot-blooded young man. Even Zhu Yu felt helpless in the end. How could this person make so many perfect disguises? Gu Shengyin said, "My disguise skills are all thanks to the almighty elders of the devil sect. My acting skills are cultivated after countless mission worlds." Finally, after more than 10 days, the party returned to Martial Union's location. On the first day after returning to Martial Union, Mu Qingfeng impatiently searched for several famous divine doctors to treat Zhu Yu. Unfortunately, the conclusion of these doctors was no different from that of the demonic sect's miracle doctor. Zhu Yu didn't feel disappointed when she heard the results. Instead, she was worried that Gu Shengyin might be disappointed. After all, the other party had always hoped that he could recover his memories as soon as possible. Otherwise, she wouldn't be at ease. On the other hand, when Martial Union's guild master returned, countless people came to congratulate him. Among them, there were many who tried to find out more about the situation. Zhu Yu dealt with them flawlessly. However, she felt even more annoyed in her heart. Chapter 1362. Instead of thinking about improving their strength, these people of the martial arts world spent all their time scheming against each other. Zhu Yu had spent some time in the demon sect, so Gu Shengyin had nothing to hide from him. Hence, Zhu Yu had a clearer understanding of the demon sect's abilities. There would be no difference if there was no comparison. In Zhu Yu's opinion, the martial arts world in the Central Plains had no advantage over the demon sect in terms of the younger generation or the combat power of the top experts. These people in the martial arts world were still complacent and looked down on the so-called barbarians outside the borders. Zhu Yu felt that these people were like frogs in a well, looking at the sky. Cheng Mingyue, on the other hand, returned to her home after returning to the Martial Union. Cheng Zhen was already at an advanced age. He doted on his only daughter, Cheng Mingyue, to the extent that he would grant her every request. When Cheng Mingyue blushed and made such a request, he was a little surprised. "You want me to propose marriage now?" Cheng Mingyue was talking to him about this matter just now. Although Cheng Zhen felt that it was inappropriate for a girl to take the initiative to mention this, it was not a problem for a girl to be straightforward and generous. However, though he frowned, Zhu Yu has lost his memory now. Why don't we wait for him to regain his memory before I go and talk to your master? The news of Zhu Yu losing his memory had been sealed. However, Cheng Zhen, a senior in the martial arts world, knew about it. Cheng Mingyue became anxious when she heard her father's words. She wanted to take advantage of the fact that her senior brother had lost his memory to get married. After all, she knew very well what kind of attitude her senior brother had towards her. Her senior brother did not like her. If he had regained his memory, he would never have agreed to marry her. However, it was different now. Her senior brother had lost all his memory. If her master were to persuade him, she would be by his side wholeheartedly. She did not believe that her senior brother would not be tempted at all. However, Cheng Mingyue did not think about it. She had followed Zhu Yu for more than 10 years. Both of them grew up together. No one could compare to her in terms of being in a favorable position. However, even under such circumstances, she could not capture Zhu Yu's heart, let alone now. She was relentless, and Cheng Zhen had no way of dealing with this daughter of his, so he agreed to her request. Since he had promised his daughter, Cheng Zhen personally made a trip to Martial Union 2 days later. He went to look for Mu Qingfeng. Mu Qingfeng hesitated when he heard his intentions. "Brother Cheng, as you know, doesn't have any memories of his past. I'm afraid it's not appropriate to make a rash decision now." Cheng Zhen stroked his beard and smiled. "Brother Qingfeng, you're overthinking. My Mingyu grew up with Zhu Yu and both of them are under your tutelage. They are simply a match made in heaven. Mu Qingfeng was a little tempted. In his heart, his eldest disciple and youngest disciple were undoubtedly a perfect match. However, he had always been a good master who respected his disciples. Moreover, his eldest disciple was now the leader of the Wulin Alliance. It was not appropriate for him to make a decision on his life. Therefore, Mu Qingfeng said, "Why don't I call you over and ask for his opinion, Brother Cheng?" Cheng Zhen did not object when he heard this. In his opinion, his Mingyu was naturally the best. No one could possibly reject her. Chapter 1363. When Zhu Yu heard that his master had invited him, he hurriedly rushed over. Even though he had lost his memory, he was still very sensitive to people's emotions. He could feel Mu Qingfeng's care and concern for him. He held a great deal of respect for this master of his. When he saw Cheng Zhen sitting beside his master, he was surprised. "May I know who this is?" Mu Qingfeng said, "This is your junior sister Mingyue's father, Senior Cheng Zhen." Zhu Yu bowed. Cheng Zhen always had a good impression of Zhu Yu. Even though he had lost his memory, he was polite and courteous. His aura was steady and his martial arts had not changed. He was very satisfied. He could not help but say, "Nephew Zhu Yu, I am here today for my Mingyue. What do you think of my Mingyue?" Zhu Yu's heart skipped a beat. He roughly knew the purpose of Uncle Cheng's visit. He replied calmly, "Junior sister Mingyue is naive and cute. She will definitely make a name for herself in the martial arts world." "That's not what I want to ask," Cheng Zhen muttered in his heart. He looked at Zhu Yu, who had a gentle expression, and went straight to the point. "Nephew, I see that you and my Mingyue are childhood sweethearts. You are a perfect match for each other. I would like to become in-laws with your master. What do you think?" Zhu Yu had already expected this. He was not surprised when he heard this. He raised his head and looked into Cheng Zhen's eyes. "I only treat junior sister Mingyue as a brother. There are no romantic feelings between us." Cheng Zhen was furious. No matter how beautiful Zhu Yu's words were, in his ears, it sounded like he was looking down on his daughter. He said in a low voice, "It seems that you have high standards. You don't even like my Mingyue, the most beautiful woman in the martial arts world." Zhu Yu bowed slightly. "I don't mean that." Cheng Zhen snorted angrily. He did not say anything else and left with a flick of his sleeve. Zhu Yu looked at his back and frowned. This Senior Cheng, even if he is a senior in the martial arts world, is too rude. He turned around and saw that his master's expression was not good. He said apologetically, "I have made master angry." Mu Qingfeng shook his head and looked at him. "This has nothing to do with you. Life's major events were something that would last a lifetime. If one had no feelings for it, it would be a torment in the future. Your Uncle Cheng is a little narrow-minded." Zhu Yu did not say anything. In his opinion, Senior Cheng wasn't just narrow-minded. How was he behaving like a virtuous and respected senior? "But do you really not like your junior sister?" Mu Qingfeng felt that it was a pity. Zhu Yu shook his head. "I have no such intentions towards you." After thinking about it, in order to prevent his master from agreeing to some strange things in the future, he still said, "Disciple's heart already belongs to someone." Mu Qingfeng's interest was piqued. "Oh. Which family did she come from? Do I know him?" When Zhu Yu saw the expression on his master's face, he couldn't bear it. He was afraid that if he really said that name, his master would have to retract his smile. However, he didn't want to lie about such things, so he said in a steady voice, "Master has seen the person that disciple likes before. She is the leader of the demon sect, Wu Yili." Mu Qingfeng's hand that was holding the teacup paused. Some tea spilled from the teacup onto the back of his hand. "Who did you just say?" He suspected that he had heard wrongly. Chapter 1364. Mu Qingfeng really hoped that he had misheard. But in the next moment, his disciple repeated himself clearly. This disciple said that the person this disciple likes is the current demon sect's leader, Wu Yili. The smile on Mu Qingfeng's face disappeared. He did not reveal too much emotion and only asked with a serious expression, Do you know what you are saying?" Zhu Yu looked at his master and nodded. This disciple understands. Mu Qingfeng said in a deep voice, "Do you know what your identity represents? Do you know what the identity of the demon sect's leader represents?" Zhu Yu still nodded. This disciple knows. Mu Qingfeng asked again, "Do you know what the world will think if the two of you are together?" Zhu Yu's face was firm. "The matter between me and her is our own matter. What does it have to do with the world?" When he said this, his usually calm eyes flashed with a trace of arrogance. He had always had the right to be arrogant. Whether it was his age, his martial arts attainments, or his achievements, it was enough for him to look down on the martial arts world. It was just that everyone was used to their alliance master's calm and reserved appearance. At this moment, Mu Qingfeng suddenly saw the shadow of that woman in his eldest disciple, the demon sect's leader who had once defeated him. He was about the same age as his eldest disciple, but their personalities were as different as heaven and earth. When that woman held the sword in her hand, it was as if she had a domineering arrogance that could split the heaven and earth in half. She had a thunderous aura that could cut through everything. It was an aura and sharpness that people of his age had long since lost. Putting aside their standpoints, Mu Qingfeng actually admired Wu Yili very much. He felt that a martial artist should be like Wu Yili. She should have an aura that could cut through all obstacles and move forward courageously. Zhu Yu was actually affected by her? He could not help but ask, "When did this happen?" Zhu Yu was a little uncertain. This disciple does not know what happened before I lost my memories. But after I lost my memories, this disciple was already certain of my feelings when I first saw her. This life belongs to none other than you. Hearing this, Mu Qingfeng sighed. He understood his eldest disciple's character. Since he dared to say such words, it meant that he had really made up his mind. He still found it hard to believe. He thought for a moment and asked, "What does the other party think?" If a woman like the demonic sect master had no interest in her eldest disciple, would probably fall into endless suffering for the rest of his life. Zhu Yu smiled when he heard this. "Yi Li's heart is the same as mine." When he said this, he couldn't hide the smile on his face. Mu Qingfeng suddenly felt that he was really old. At this moment, Zhu Yu knelt down in front of Mu Qingfeng. Disciple knows that this is a little unfilial, but disciple will only recognize Yi Li in this life. "Master, please grant me this wish." Mu Qingfeng looked at his kneeling posture and smiled helplessly. "What kind of person do you think I am? Get up." Zhu Yu looked at his master and was pleasantly surprised. "Master, you don't object?" Mu Qingfeng glared at him. "If I object, will you not be with her?" Zhu Yu did not say anything. How is that possible? Even if everyone in the world opposed it, they would not be able to stop his determination to be with her. At this time, he heard Mu Qingfeng's faint voice. "If you have time, bring her to see your master." Chapter 1365. Zhu Yu was overjoyed. He had already decided that he would be with Gu Shengyin no matter what others thought. However, the person in front of him was his master. If he could receive his master's blessings, the meaning would be different. He was overjoyed and quickly said, "Disciple thanks master." Mu Qingfeng's emotions were still in a mess. He waved his hand at Zhu Yu and said, "Hurry up and leave. Don't just stand here and annoy me." Zhu Yu smiled and tactfully stopped provoking him. He had already decided that once he regained his memories, he would officially go to the demon sect to propose marriage. He wanted to announce to the world that he, Zhu Yu, wanted to marry the demon sect's sect leader, Wu Yeli. As for other people's objections, at most, he would not be the martial arts alliance master anymore. Compared to dealing with these complicated matters every day, Zhu Yu preferred to accompany Gu Shengyin. It was just the two of them. Whether it was traveling the world or finding a place to live in seclusion, it was good enough. Zhu Yu left Martial Arts Alliance on the same day and went to a small courtyard not far from Martial Arts Alliance. Gu Shengyin would be staying here for the time being. With her martial arts, it would not be difficult for her to sneak into Martial Arts Alliance. However, it would be rude to do so. Most importantly, Gu Shengyin only needed to know some information about her lover. There was no need for her to take such a risk. When Zhu Yu entered, Gu Xingyin was sitting on the swing in the courtyard and taking a nap. Although her eyes were closed, Zhu Yu knew that she was awake. She might have been asleep earlier, but she must have woken up the moment he entered the room. Before Gu Xingyin could open her eyes, she felt her body being carried by someone. Then, Zhu Yu carried her and spun her around in the courtyard. Even Gu Xingyin was taken aback by this inexplicable development. She quickly hugged Zhu Yu's waist and asked him what was wrong. After finally calming down, Zhu Yu carried Gu Xingyin and sat on the swing. "I told my master about what happened between us," Zhu Yu said. "His master?" Mu Qingfeng's face flashed through Gu Xingyin's mind. And this old man was probably one of the few people in Wu Yili's memory that was pleasing to the eye. She was strong, but she didn't put on the airs of a senior in the martial arts world. She didn't get angry after losing to a junior like him. Instead, she praised Wu Yili's talent in martial arts. She regained her senses and looked at Zhu Yu. Judging from his reaction, it seemed that the results were pretty good. Gu Xingyin asked with a smile, "Let me guess. Did your master promise us something?" Zhu Yu was playing with her fingers. When he heard her, he smiled and said, "You even know about this." Gu Xingyin snorted. "Your mouth is so wide that it almost reaches your eyes. If your master was against it, would you be so happy?" Zhu Yu laughed. He hugged Gu Xingyin's waist and brought their bodies closer together. He whispered in her ear, "Yili, I'm really happy." Sensing the seriousness in his words, Gu Xingyin stopped teasing him. She turned and smiled at him. "And I'm also very happy." Cheng Mingyue sat in a small building with a gloomy expression. Ever since she heard the news that her father brought back, she had been in low spirits. Her senior brother had rejected her without any hesitation. "Miss, this is something that master found. It's said to be a rare item from the palace." The servant girl beside her handed over an item. Cheng Mingyue looked at it disinterestedly. It was a pitch-black tube. What was it? Chapter 1366. What is this? She picked it up and looked at it for a while. She saw that there seemed to be something transparent at the end of the black tube. The servant girl smiled and said, "This servant has never seen such a rare item before. I only heard that this thing is called something like a clairvoyance. If you put it on your eyes, it is said that you can see very far away." Cheng Mingyue sneered, "Such a magical thing?" Although she didn't believe it, she still picked it up and looked at it in front of her eyes. She was really surprised when she saw it. It really could see very far away. Although Cheng Mingyue was from a prominent family, she had never seen such a rare item before. She took it and looked around. When the servant girl saw that her young miss finally smiled, she finally heaved a sigh of relief. She was responsible for taking care of young Mississippi. If young miss continued to be unhappy, she was afraid that old master would vent his anger on her servants. Cheng Mingyue did not have the mood to care about the servant girl's thoughts. She felt that it was very novel. The scenery of those distant places magically appeared in front of her eyes. When she moved the thing away, only the scenery in front of her was left. She immediately forgot about the sadness that Zhu Yu had brought her and put all her attention on her new toy. But when her gaze suddenly landed on a place, the smile on her face froze. In that small courtyard, a man and woman were hugging each other and sitting on the swing. Why did they look so familiar? Cheng Mingyue thought that she had seen wrongly. But when she looked at the two of them seriously, she felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured over her head. She was completely cold. That man in green who was smiling gently at the woman on top of him, wasn't that her senior brother Zhu Yu? No wonder he rejected her father's proposal. He actually liked someone else. Cheng Mingyue only felt annoyed. She wanted to throw the thing in her hand away. Out of sight, out of mind. It was not that she was unwilling. How could she be willing if she did not look at that woman's face? The two of them were hugging each other and seemed to be having a very intimate conversation. From Cheng Mingyue's point of view, the woman in white was facing her from the side, so she couldn't see the woman's face clearly. She only felt a sense of familiarity. Who was it? She actually snatched away her senior brother. Cheng Mingyue's heart was burning with anger, but her face was cold. She wanted to take a good look and see who exactly that woman was. At this moment, Zhu Yu turned his head and kissed the girl's ear. The girl couldn't stand the ticklish feeling and smiled as she turned her head to avoid it. The woman's face happened to appear in Cheng Mingyue's line of sight. Clang! Cheng Mingyue was shocked. The thing in her hand loosened and fell to the ground. Aya! The maidservant who had been serving her quickly bent down to pick up the things. However, the main material of the clairvoyance, the transparent material called glass, was smashed into pieces by Cheng Mingyue. Cheng Mingyue wanted to take another look at it to confirm if she had seen wrongly, but she found that it had been completed and could no longer be used. She angrily threw the thing in her hand to the ground. When she came back to her senses, she saw the young servant girl looking at her nervously. She felt even more annoyed. He raised his hand and slapped her. What are you looking at? Scram. Chapter 1367. The maidservant packed up her things, covered her face, and retreated, leaving Cheng Mingyue alone in the small building. She had seen it clearly just now. She wanted to confirm it again because she was unwilling to accept it. With that woman's appearance and grace, anyone who saw her once would never forget her. Cheng Mingyue saw it clearly. The woman who was sitting in eldest senior brother's arms and smiling happily was the demon sex master, whom she had seen once. Why did that woman appear in Liangzhou City? But that was not important. The key was her and eldest senior brother? Cheng Mingyue could not understand why eldest senior brother would rather like a demoness from the demon sect than her, his junior sister who grew up with him and was of equal social status. Could it really be because of her devastatingly beautiful face? Thinking of the demon sex master's face, Cheng Mingyue had to admit that she was no match for her, no matter how unwilling she was. Eldest senior brother must have been bewitched by that woman after he lost his memory. Cheng Mingyue comforted herself. She could not let eldest senior brother continue to be deceived by that woman. Cheng Mingyue sat by the window of the small building and looked in that direction stubbornly. It was as if she could still see the intimate appearance of the man and woman in the courtyard. Cheng Mingyue's lips curled into a cold smile. Demon sex master, if we were at Mount Wudu, I would not have been able to do anything to you. But you insisted on seeking death and came to the martial arts world of the Central Plains alone to Liangzhou City. Then don't blame me for being impolite. She got up, hurriedly put on a cloak, and walked out. At the same time, in the small courtyard, Gu Xingyin felt that something was wrong. What's wrong? Zhu Yu sharply sensed her emotions. Gu Xingyin frowned. I felt that someone was watching us just now. Zhu Yu laughed. Don't think too much. With our abilities, there is no one in this world who can spy on us without being discovered, right? Gu Xingyin thought about it and agreed, so she did not think too much about it. Zhu Yu stayed there until lunchtime and then left. He was different now, so it was inevitable that someone would follow him. Being able to spend an entire morning here without being discovered was already the limit of what he could do. After Zhu Yu left, Gu Xingyin asked the system, what happened just now? Her prediction just now was definitely not an illusion. It was impossible for an expert of her level to have such a strong illusion. As expected, the system gave her the answer. It's her. After knowing who it was, Gu Xingyin was relieved. Let me guess. Given Fairy Ming Yu's righteous image, she will definitely be prepared to get rid of demons and defend justice after knowing that I, the cult master of the demon cult, have appeared in the headquarters of the Central Plains. Gu Xingyin rested his chin on his hand and thought for a moment. System, do you think she'll find a group of assassins to deal with me silently? Or will she leak my whereabouts and let the entire Central Plains martial arts world come to deal with me? The system's white light flashed, and it answered seriously, Host, according to the system's calculations, based on the character of the target, Cheng Mingyu, it is more likely that she will directly take your life. Gu Xingyin smiled brightly. What a coincidence. I think so too. Her tone was relaxed, as if she did not feel that being targeted was a bad thing. Chapter 1368. Gu Xingyin lived in a small courtyard. Occasionally she would disguise herself and walk around Liangzhou City. She had no choice. Her face was too eye-catching. If she didn't disguise herself, she would definitely be noticed. She was afraid that she would get into trouble. Gu Shengyin wasn't afraid of anyone, but she was afraid of trouble. Therefore, she would rather go out with a little trouble. On this day, she carried 2 jars of good wine and packed some of the most famous dishes in Liangzhou City. She planned to drink to her heart's content at night. When she entered the door, Gu Shengyin paused for a moment. She then closed the door of the small courtyard without changing her breathing, and slowly walked towards the only stone table in the courtyard. Just as she was about to put the things on the table, a black shadow quietly approached her from behind. The masked man's eyes flashed fiercely. The dagger in his hand mercilessly stabbed toward Gu Shengyin's back. This time, it was obvious that he wanted to kill her. However, if she was killed like this, Gu Shengyin's title as the leader of the demon sect would be in vain. The assassin did not even see the other party's movements clearly. He felt his hand go numb, and the dagger in his hand fell to the ground. Then, there was a bright light imprinted in his eyes. That was the last ray of light he saw in this world. Gu Shengyin didn't look at the assassin on the ground. Dead people were never worth her attention. 2 more gusts of wind came from behind. Gu Shengyin didn't seem to notice. She was stabbed. The eyes of the assassin on the right flashed with joy. When he thought of the generous reward from his employer, his heart surged. However, in the next moment, he felt that something was wrong. The dagger in his hand seemed to have stabbed into a thick steel wall. It didn't go in at all. By the time he wanted to retreat, it was already too late. A pair of hands had already silently grabbed his wrist. 2 more figures fell down. Gu Shengyin didn't plan to let him live at all. Most of the people in Jianghu who took money for their lives didn't know who their customers were. Even if they knew something, Gu Shengyin didn't care. That was no longer important. After all, Gu Shengyin already knew who the mastermind was. Naturally, there was no need for these people to exist. The small courtyard was completely silent. Only the smell of blood and the 3 corpses on the ground indicated that something had happened here. Gu Shengyin sneered in a low voice. "You only sent 3 of them to assassinate me?" She really doesn't put the dignified demon cult's leader in her eyes, does she? As soon as he finished speaking, Gu Shengyin sensed an aura moving in the middle of the courtyard. "Come out." She looked at her room indifferently. There was no movement. Gu Shengyin's voice grew colder. "What? Do you need me to personally invite you out?" The door creaked, and a black figure rushed out at an extremely fast speed. Looking at his clothes, it was obvious that he was the same group of people as the black-clothed assassins. Gu Shengyin glanced at him and knew that this person was the main force of this assassination. This person had the most profound internal strength among the 4 assassins. However, this person didn't have the intention to attack Gu Shengyin. Or it could be said that after knowing Gu Shengyin's identity, he didn't have the intention to go against her. Gu Shengyin looked at him with a smile. Suddenly, she had a wonderful idea. Chapter 1369. Gu Shengyin asked the black-clothed figure standing quietly by her side, "Do you want to live or die?" If someone else had said this, the black-clothed figure might have said that this person was arrogant. But the person who said this was the demon sect's master, who had challenged countless experts of the Central Plains with a single sword strike without losing a single one. The black-clothed figure could only admit that the other party had the ability to decide his life or death in an instant. Even though the assassin profession had always licked blood from the edge of the blade, there was no one who didn't cherish their own life. Gu Shengyin was very satisfied to hear the expected answer. "I want to live." This was the good thing about assassins. They wouldn't talk nonsense with you. They would only tell you what they wanted in the most straightforward way. "Very good," Gu Shengyin said. "Then use your own life to make a deal with this venerable one." Her lips moved, and the black-clothed figure's body trembled. In the end, he could only hoarsely agree. Gu Shengyin waved her hand, indicating that he could leave. Just as the black-clothed figure was about to leave, he heard Gu Shengyin shout, "Wait a moment." His body stiffened, afraid that this person would change her mind again. He heard Gu Shengyin say, "Remember to take them away. Don't dirty this venerable one's place." The black-clothed figure hurriedly agreed as if he had been pardoned. The small courtyard fell silent once more. Gu Shengyin turned her head to look at the small courtyard. Although it looked very clean, when she thought about how 3 people had died here not long ago, she instantly lost the mood to eat and drink. For people like her, everything she did depended on her mood. Gu Shengyin expressed that her impression of Cheng Mingyue had worsened, because Cheng Mingyue had ruined her mood for drinking. The system silently lit a candle for a certain character target. The next day, Gu Shengyin, who was drinking in a tea house, heard a rumor. Hey, did you know? Fairy Mingyue encountered an assassin last night. Fairy Mingyue? Who would hate Fairy Mingyue so much? Who knows? The conversation in the tea house was in full swing. Gu Shengyin listened quietly. The gist of the news was that a group of people had infiltrated the Cheng family last night, preparing to assassinate the Cheng family's eldest daughter, Cheng Mingyue. Fortunately, old Master Cheng had arrived in time. In the end, although the assassin was forced to retreat, old Master Cheng's old illness was triggered, and the heat poison in his body could no longer be suppressed. Gu Shengyin hid the smile at the corner of his mouth. Heat poison? The only antidote he knew was the frigid pond snow lotus. As for the cold pond snow lotus, it had already been fed to the Wulian Alliance chief Zhu Yu by the devil cult's cult master. In other words, there was no cure for old Master Cheng Zhen this time. Shopkeeper, the bill please. Gu Shengyin shouted and placed an ingot of silver on the table. All right. Gu Shengyin slowly walked out. Cheng Mingyue, this time, your father had saved you from disaster. What about the next time? Gu Shengyin did not feel guilty for involving Cheng Zhen. Cheng Zhen was not a good person either. He had done those things in the dark for the Cheng family's benefit, and he had even caused the downfall of those small families. Even if he died, he deserved it. When Gu Shengyin returned to the small courtyard, she saw Zhu Yu sitting there. There was a cup of tea beside his hand, but it was no longer warm. It was obvious that he had been here for quite some time. When he saw Gu Shengyin, his expression became serious. Chapter 1370. Gu Shengyin closed the door behind him, removed the disguise on his face, and sat beside him. What happened to you? She asked. Zhu Yu looked at Gu Shengyin and felt his throat dry up. Do you know what happened to the Cheng family? Gu Shengyin's expression turned serious when he heard that. She looked at Zhu Yu and wondered why he was here. Was he here to question her? Or did he have other intentions? She thought for a while and decided not to use all sorts of bad conjectures on her lover. She nodded. I know. Moreover, I was the one who sent the assassins to the Cheng family. After saying that, she looked at Zhu Yu. She wanted to know how Zhu Yu would react at a time like this. When Zhu Yu heard Gu Shengyin's words, the first thing he said was, Did my junior sister do something wrong? Gu Shengyin finally smiled. When he heard that she sent the assassins to kill, his first reaction was not to suspect her, but to question others. What was she thinking about when she met such a man? She said, Yesterday during the day, a group of killers came to my small courtyard. I left 3 people alive and 1 alive. Looking at Zhu Yu's worried expression, Gu Shengyin comforted him. I'm fine. Then she said, As for the remaining one, I told him to use his life in exchange for the life of the person who wants to take my life. She spread out her hands innocently. I didn't know that this person would be your junior sister, Fairy Mingyu. When she called Fairy Mingyu, her voice was full of mockery. The moon was bright and clear in the sky, cold and pure. How could she be worthy of this name? Zhu Yu's serious expression finally relaxed. He lifted his hand and felt Gu Shengyin's pulse. This man was probably the only one in the world who could make the leader of the demon cult obediently let his pulse be held and not resist. Zhu Yu only felt relieved after he personally checked that this person was fine. After hearing about the Cheng family, Zhu Yu did not know why, but the first thing she thought of was Gu Shengyin. He didn't know why he was so sure that this matter had something to do with Gu Shengyin. However, he wasn't suspecting her. Instead, he was wondering how his junior sister had offended her. Based on her understanding of Gu Shengyin, she was not the kind of person who would kill for no reason. That was why he asked that question when he came here. Gu Shengyin looked at him and suddenly said, Zhu Yu, on your account, I will not pursue this matter with her this time. If there is a next time. Her eyes flashed with killing intent. Then, she felt her hand being held by a pair of warm hands. You don't have to do it on my account, Yili. Zhu Yu looked at her seriously. No one is more important than you. Junior sister Cheng's actions shouldn't be forgiven. You can't forgive me and neither can I. He couldn't forgive anyone who intended to harm this person in front of him. Something seemed to flash in Gu Xingyin's eyes. She smiled and said, I'll take your words seriously. Don't think that after you regain your memory, you'll be reminded of your relationship with your childhood sweetheart and you won't be able to bear to part with it. Zhu Yu smiled and shook his head. I won't. If there is anything more important to me than you in this world, I won't forget it. There won't be such a situation. Chapter 1371. Bang! Cheng Mingyue didn't know how many tea sets had been broken in her room. Her personal maid stood outside the room with her shoulders shrunk. She didn't dare to provoke her mistress at this moment. Since the master was assassinated and the doctor said there was nothing he could do, her mistress became very moody. Cheng Mingyue was very nervous now. She knew who those assassins were after. Their target was her. Her father, on the other hand, had used his true qi for her sake, which had triggered his old injury. Those assassins, Cheng Mingyue still felt scared when she thought about it. That cold and emotionless gaze, that chilling dagger, was just a hair's breadth away from piercing into her heart. Her martial arts skills, which she was proud of, were simply vulnerable in front of them. Those assassins were after revenge. Because before they killed her, they said, Miss Cheng, why didn't you tell us the identity of the other party when you hired us? That assassin was really angry in his heart. Even if they were assassins, their lives were valuable. Assassinating the hierarch of the devil cult was a suicide mission. If Cheng Mingyue had told them Gu Xingyin's identity at that time, they wouldn't have taken the job anyway. Not to mention that it was impossible to complete the mission, they would have offended a big shot for no reason. This woman didn't care about their lives at all. This was the most important reason why Cheng Mingyue didn't dare to tell them Gu Xingyin's identity at this moment. If they knew that the target was the hierarch of the devil cult, no assassin organization would dare to take the job no matter how much money she offered. But now, Cheng Mingyue was not afraid of these assassins, but of the hierarch of the devil cult. Did she know about it now? Cheng Mingyue couldn't help but shudder when she recalled the way that woman had looked at her from above and the mysterious means she had used to deal with her. That woman was definitely not a person who repaid evil with good. If she knew that she had hired someone to assassinate her, she would never let her go. But now, her father, the only one who could protect her in the Cheng family, was lying in bed in a coma. If that woman came to make trouble for her, the Cheng family alone couldn't stop her. Cheng Mingyue bit her lips so hard that it bled. Her expression was indescribably gloomy. Master of the devil cult, every man for himself. Since you and I are already mortal enemies, don't blame me for being ruthless. She tidied herself up, and when she went out again, she looked no different from before. When the servant girl at the door saw that Miss had returned to normal, she heaved a sigh of relief. Xiao Tang, clean up this place and accompany me on a trip. Yes, Mississippi, a female guest, who was shrouded in a curtain, arrived at the largest intelligence building in Liangzhou City. The receptionist wasn't surprised to see this. People who came here usually didn't have any honorable intentions. And these people were usually unwilling to let others know their identities. However, they did not know that if the information pavilion wanted to know their identities, it would not take much effort. When the mysterious guest saw the receptionist, he immediately took out a money bag. The receptionist at the information pavilion noticed that this guest had a pair of very beautiful hands. I need you to help me spread a message about the things inside. She opened the money pouch in her hand and poured out the contents, a whole pouch of money. Gold. Chapter 1372. The eyes of the person in charge of the information pavilion narrowed when he saw so much gold. Even for him, it was rare to see such a large sum of money. However, he didn't reach out to take it. Instead, he asked, "What do you want us to do, miss?" In their line of work, the biggest taboo was to be short-sighted. When they saw money, they didn't care about anything else. Some gold and silver, Even if you got it, you still had to be alive to spend it. Cheng Mingyue was a little nervous. She was afraid that the other party would be like those assassin organizations and not take the job. However, she had no other choice. In the end, she opened her mouth and told him what she wanted to do. The person in charge of the information pavilion opened his mouth and looked at the person in front of him who was wrapped tightly. Who was this person? How dare he provoke the demon sect's leader? No, the point was the demon sect's leader was in Liangzhou City. He thought for a while and asked Cheng Mingyue to sit here and wait for a while. He also prepared tea and snacks. Honorable guest, please wait for a moment. I can't make the decision. Let our pavilion master talk to you in detail. Cheng Mingyue nodded. Soon, a handsome young man in white holding a folding fan walked over under the guidance of the person in charge. He had a handsome face and the corners of his lips were slightly raised. His appearance was not inferior to that of eldest senior brother Zhuyu. She had never heard of such a person before. Cheng Mingyue glanced at the man. She wasn't a little girl who just came out of the martial arts world. Naturally, she knew that this was not his true appearance. The person in charge left after bringing the man here. Miss, do you want to touch that person? The man in white smiled and pointed to the west. The headquarters of the demon sect, Mount Wudu, was in that direction. Cheng Mingyue was a little nervous, but her tone was cold and arrogant. But, is there a problem? No, there's no problem. The man in white didn't seem to think that the demon sect that everyone in Jianghu feared was very powerful. This made Cheng Mingyue's heart calm down. She said, then our deal is done? With a snap, the man in white closed his fan. He stared at Cheng Mingyue, his gaze seemingly able to pierce through the layer of cloth and see through her entire person. Esteemed guest, this price is not worth the risk of offending the demonic sect. The man in white was still smiling. Cheng Mingyue gritted her teeth. Then how much will it take for you to do it? The man in white stretched out 2 fingers with a smile. Cheng Mingyue looked at him in confusion. She didn't understand what he meant. Seeing this, the man in white said, double. He pointed at the gold ingots scattered on the table. His meaning was self-evident. Cheng Mingyue's voice sharpened. Twice? You guys are crazy. I just want you to spread the news. The man in white didn't get angry when he saw her like this. He only said a few words lightly. But this news is related to the cult master of the demonic sect who defeated all the top-notch masters of the martial arts world of the Central Plains. This humble one can guarantee that apart from this humble one, there is no other clan that would dare to accept the mission of our esteemed guest. Cheng Mingyue's momentum suddenly weakened. She knew that he was telling the truth. Can't be less? She was a little unwilling to give up. Such a large sum of money was not easy for her. The man in white shook his head. Not a penny less. Chapter 1373. In the end, Cheng Mingyue paid the money. After she was done with this matter, she returned to the Cheng mansion with satisfaction. In her plan, the entire Liangzhou city would know that the demon sect's sect leader, Wu Yeli, had come to Liangzhou city and that she was up to no good. Needless to say, rumors could easily spread to her desired effect. Cheng Mingyue knew this very well. She only needed to reveal the demon sect's sect leader's address tomorrow or the day after. By then, if a few more accidents happened, countless people in the martial arts world would go against the demon sect's sect leader in the name of eliminating the evil. Cheng Mingyue was very familiar with such methods. However, she did not know that not long after she left the information pavilion, an inconspicuous figure entered the martial union. Zhuyu looked at the secret letter in his hand with a gloomy expression. He didn't remember what happened before, but his previous subordinates didn't know about it, so they reported important things to him as usual. He said in a low voice, "Find out the identity of the person who entrusted the mission." The subordinate was shocked. "Chief, this is against the rules." His unfinished words were silenced under Zhuyu's cold gaze. "Yes, sir." The result was out very quickly. It was his good junior sister, Cheng Mingyue. Zhuyu looked at the report and did not speak for a long time. He always knew that his junior sister was a narrow-minded person, but he did not expect her to be so vicious. Zhu Yu went directly to the small courtyard where Gu Xingyin was. He showed her the information he had found. Unexpectedly, Zhu Yu did not see any surprise in Gu Xingyin's eyes. "You know about this?" he asked doubtfully. Gu Xingyin shook her head. "I only know that your junior sister has never had any good intentions towards me." She looked at Zhu Yu. "You told me this just like that. Aren't you afraid that I will take revenge on your junior sister?" Zhu Yu looked at her. "I have said this a long time ago. To me, there is nothing more important than you in this world." Even if Gu Xingyin did not pursue the matter with Cheng Mingyue, he did not intend to let it go so easily. Gu Xingyin smiled when he heard that. "All right then, I'll tell you in advance. Don't blame me if I do anything." Zhu Yu only looked at her with a smile. He had placed his entire heart on her, so naturally, no one understood her better than he did. His Yi Li had never been a malicious person. No matter what happened to Cheng Mingyue, she only had herself to blame. In the end, Gu Xingyin said a few words to Zhu Yu. She wanted to deal with Cheng Mingyue's matter by herself. Zhu Yu was not surprised that she would make such a decision. The demon cult master, Wu Yeli, had never been a woman who only knew how to hide behind others. On the second day, as expected, some news secretly spread throughout Liangzhou City. It was said that the evil cult intended to harm the world of martial artists in the Central Plains, and that their cult master had secretly come to Liangzhou City. While everyone was shocked by the news, another address was spread. It was said to be the place where the demon cult master lived. When Cheng Mingyue heard the news, she smiled slowly. "Wu Yeli, no matter how powerful you are, can you go against the entire world of martial artists in the Central Plains?" Chapter 1374. However, when the group of martial artists from the Central Plains finally arrived at the small courtyard that Gu Xingyin had bought after choosing a day to annihilate the evil path, Gu Xingyin was stunned. They saw Zhu Yu, the leader of the martial arts world, chatting with his master and several other martial arts seniors. Zhu Yu was obviously in a very good mood. When he saw the group of people, he held a wine cup in his hand and smiled. "What's wrong with everyone?" The group of people from the martial arts world were speechless. Seeing the scene in front of them, they were almost certain that they had been fooled. Where was the lair of the devil sex leader? They didn't see the devil sex leader, but the leader of the martial arts world was here. The leader of this group of people from the martial arts world was the leader of a medium-sized sect. He had quite a bit of prestige among this group of people. At this time, he looked embarrassed, but he was also free and easy. This old man heard a rumor that there was an evildoer from the devil sect hiding here, so I brought my martial arts friends here. Now that I see the leader and the other seniors, I know that I have been fooled. With the leader and the other seniors here, which blind person from the devil sect would dare to come here? His words were beautiful. Not only did he explain the reason for doing so, but he also secretly praised everyone present. Sure enough, after hearing his words, the faces of the seniors who were unhappy because their mood had been disturbed became much better. Mu Qingfeng looked at the group of people from the martial arts world and said, "Today I am in a good mood, so I invited a few old friends to this courtyard that I bought a long time ago for a small gathering. Who would have thought that there would be such a thing?" That person felt cold sweat on his back. All the people here were old seniors who had been famous in the martial arts world for a long time. During their time, he didn't even know what a sword was. He just said that he was going to exterminate the remnants of the devil sect? If these people were the remnants of the devil sect, the martial arts world of the Central Plains would have changed a long time ago. Under the gaze of the older generation of martial arts experts, this group of people hurriedly retreated. Who spread this news? After leaving the courtyard, the leader finally couldn't hold back and scolded. Everyone present looked at each other and didn't say anything. When the sect master saw this scene, he felt a chill in his heart. They were clearly being used by someone with ulterior motives. He said in a low voice, "What happened to the person who said he saw the devil sect's demoness appear in the courtyard?" If it wasn't for the fact that someone had sworn that he had personally seen people from the devil sect entering and exiting the courtyard, he wouldn't have been so rash as to barge in. Naturally, it was impossible for anyone to stand up for such a matter. The sect leader probably knew that if he really wanted to make use of them, they would have run away long ago. Even if they didn't run away, they wouldn't be so stupid as to stand up and admit that they were spreading fake news. "Everyone disperse," he said with a heavy expression. Therefore, in less than 2 days, the news about the demon sect's leader was covered by another joke. This joke was about a group of people in the martial arts world who had heard a rumor from who knew where. They had gathered together to eliminate evil and defend the Tao. In the end, they had bumped into Senior Mu Qingfeng's courtyard door. Who was Senior Mu Qingfeng? Who were the people in his courtyard? However, the old senior was kind and did not make things difficult for these people. In the end, these people returned with their tails between their legs. However, no one knew which busybody actually made a list of these people. They had lost a lot of face this time. Under such circumstances, the group of people gnashed their teeth in hatred towards the culprit who had caused them to become like this, the person who could spread the rumors. Chapter 1375. Haha. When she heard this, Gu Xingyin was laughing happily in the courtyard. "You're worse than me." Gu Xingyin looked at Zhu Yu with a smile. Zhu Yu only smiled without saying anything. "Tell me, when did you regain your memory?" Gu Xingyin suddenly asked. Zhu Yu was shocked. "How did you know?" Gu Xingyin looked at him. "Why wouldn't I know?" Although Zhu Yu had concealed it well, there were still some differences between this person and his previous appearance. Zhu Yu shook his head. 2 days ago, I was going to give you a surprise." Gu Xingyin pursed her lips and smiled. "Then wouldn't I be letting you down?" Zhu Yu looked at her. "No, I'm very happy." Even his master couldn't tell that he had regained his memory, but she could. How could he not be happy? "Since you already know that I've regained my memory, why don't you come with me to see my master?" Zhu Yu suddenly said. Gu Xingyin had no objection to this. Zhu Yu's master, Senior Mu Qingfeng, had already found out from Zhu Yu that she had been in Liangzhou City all this time. This time, it was all thanks to Mu Qingfeng's cooperation that the people in the martial arts world were able to get rid of their objections so quickly. When Mu Qingfeng saw the demon sect's leader again, he had mixed feelings. This was the 3rd time he met Wu Yeli. The first time they met, her talent in martial arts left a deep impression on him. The second time they met, the eccentric personality of the demon sect's leader made him grit his teeth. And the 3rd time they met, Mu Qingfeng could only sigh as he looked at the woman who bowed respectfully to him. He knew very well how arrogant she was. But now, she was willing to come to the martial arts world of the Central Plains alone for his disciple. She even bowed to him. The slight grudge in his heart disappeared just like that. Forget it, he would let the young people make their own decisions. Since Zhu Yu had made his own choice, as his master, he would follow his own wishes. Zhu Yu suddenly looked at his master. "Master, I have another piece of good news to tell you." Mu Qingfeng looked at his disciple. Zhu Yu told Mu Qingfeng that she had regained her memories. Sure enough, this news was undoubtedly the happiest news for Mu Qingfeng right now. Moreover, it had lifted a heavy burden from his heart. It also made him understand that there was no room for negotiation between his disciple and the cult master of the devil cult. Zhu Yu had always been gentle and reserved since he was young. However, as his master, Zhu Yu knew that his disciple would not make a decision easily. Once he had made up his mind, he would not change it. "How is it now? Can you confirm my sincerity?" Zhu Yu held Gu Xingyin's hand and asked with a smile. Gu Xingyin glanced at him. When had she ever doubted his sincerity? "Does your master know about your junior sister?" Gu Xingyin asked. Zhu Yu nodded. "Although I didn't say it explicitly, my master has already found out." He looked at Gu Xingyin and seemed to be a little embarrassed. "My master means that she is a girl after all. Now that her father's life is unknown, if possible, it is better to leave her some leeway." Gu Xingyin held the golden silk cup in her hand. Her slender fingers rested on it quietly. "I will give her a chance. It is none of my business whether she can hold on to it or not." Chapter 1376. When Cheng Mingyue heard the news from outside, she couldn't help but sweep all the things on her dowry onto the floor. Her eyes were faintly bloodshot. Obviously, she hadn't rested well for a few days. However, the reason for her lack of rest was very different from before. 2 days ago, it was because of excitement. In her mind, she had already imagined dozens of possible outcomes for the cult master of the devil cult. He might have to flee with injuries, or he might have to bear the infamy of being condemned by the public. Of course, Cheng Mingyue hoped that the woman would not be able to go back. Only when that woman was dead would she be able to truly rest assured. However, in the short span of a day, this matter had taken a turn that she did not expect. There was no demon sect leader at all. The person living in the courtyard was her master, the martial arts senior Mu Qingfeng. When Cheng Mingyue heard this, her heart turned cold. She didn't expect that her master would side with the demon sect leader. That's right, in Cheng Mingyue's eyes, there was no other possibility. It was as if a string in her mind that had been stretched taut for a long time had suddenly snapped. At this moment, there was nothing but hatred in her mind. That woman was simply a devil. Since she appeared, senior brother ignored her. Now, even master was siding with her. What about her? Her father was now lying in bed, unconscious. Her reputation as Fairy Mingyue in the martial arts world had also begun to decline. It was all because of that woman. No, it wasn't just that woman. There was also senior brother Zhu Yu whom she liked, master who had always doted on her, and those people in the martial arts world. These people were all hypocrites. Unconsciously, her eyes became redder and redder. At this moment, a golden glimmer floated in from outside the window. The glimmer was very weak. It was so weak that if one didn't look carefully, one wouldn't notice it at all. That golden glimmer landed on Cheng Mingyue's hair without anyone noticing. Then, it disappeared in an instant. Cheng Mingyue frowned slightly. Somehow, she felt that her heart had palpitated a little just now. The next moment, a maid's cries could be heard, "Young miss, old master has passed away." What? Cheng Mingyue was in a daze for a moment. Ever since she was born, her mother had passed away, and it was her father who had raised her. Because she didn't like it and he was afraid that she would be wronged, Cheng Zhen didn't even take a second wife. Even though Gu Shengyin didn't approve of Cheng Zhen's character, he had to admit that Cheng Zhen was the best a father could do for his daughter. But at the same time, it was precisely because of his unprincipled doting that Cheng Mingyue developed such a domineering and selfish character. Cheng Zhen was a famous senior in the martial arts world. Almost all the reputable figures in the martial arts world had come to his funeral. Regardless of whether they were sincere or not, at this moment, everyone had to put on a sorrowful expression. For 3 days, Cheng Mingyue knelt in front of her father's memorial tablet. No matter how others comforted her, it was useless. It wasn't until 3 days later that Mu Qingfeng couldn't stand it anymore. If he went down, he was afraid that his little disciple would fall before Cheng Zhen was even buried. He walked to Cheng Mingyue's side and reached out to help her. "Go away. Don't touch me," Cheng Mingyue suddenly exclaimed. Chapter 1377. Not only Mu Qingfeng, but the other guests were also shocked by Cheng Mingyue's sudden emotional outburst. Zhu Yu stood in the crowd and frowned as he looked at Cheng Mingyue. Gu Shengyin didn't come. In her words, she said, "Cheng Zhen, that old man, how can I attend his funeral?" Mu Qingfeng lowered his head and looked at his little disciple. He wasn't angry at her rudeness. He could understand that she had lost her father. It was normal for her to be emotional. But Cheng Mingyue's next words shocked him. After Cheng Mingyue said those words, it was as if she finally had a breakthrough after many days of emotions. She didn't ask anyone to help her and stood up on her own. Because she hadn't stood up for a few days, her body was a little shaky, but there was a strange smile on her face. She looked at Mu Qingfeng and said, "Don't help me. I know that you accepted me as your disciple because of my Cheng family's status in the martial arts world. Mu Qingfeng, you hypocrite." As soon as her words came out, the whole hall was in an uproar. Could it be that Mingyu's father's sudden death had caused her to go crazy? When Mu Qingfeng heard such words, his expression calmed down. It was as if his little disciple wasn't talking about him. He opened his mouth and said, "In your heart, has this always been how you see me as your master?" Cheng Mingyue stared at him closely. Yes. Mu Qingfeng, if it weren't for your former identity as the #1 master in the martial arts world, my status would rise to a higher level if I became your disciple. Do you think I care? Mu Qingfeng lowered his eyes and suddenly turned around. Then today, in front of all the martial arts world, this old man will announce that Miss Cheng and I have dissolved our master-disciple relationship. This old man can no longer be Miss Cheng's master. It was hard to tell if he was happy or angry, but everyone felt that Senior Mu Qingfeng was furious this time. The disciple that he raised with his own hands actually said such disgraceful words. Many people felt that if their own disciple was like this, they said that being kicked out of the sect was a light punishment. If her temper was more violent, it was possible that she would be cleaned up. It was just that Mingyu usually looked gentle and generous. No one would have thought that her heart would have such thoughts. There was a lot of discussion in the hall. When these discussions reached Cheng Mingyue's ears, it became everyone mocking her. Mu Qingfeng had already left. When Zhu Yu saw this scene, his face darkened. Since Miss Cheng is no longer a disciple of my sect, Zhu Yu will take his leave. He lifted his leg and was about to leave. His master was probably sad now, and he was a little worried. Zhu Yu, stop right there. Cheng Mingyue suddenly shouted when she saw him. Zhu Yu turned around and saw Cheng Mingyue looking at him with a complicated expression. Deep love and extreme hatred could be seen in her eyes. Zhu Yu, tell me which part of me, Cheng Mingyue, is not worthy of you? I like you so much and I'm always worried about you. Why won't you look at me? She was very agitated. Zhu Yu said faintly, Miss Cheng, the relationship between a man and a woman cannot be forced. It's better not to say such words so as to avoid damaging your reputation. Cheng Mingyue sneered. Reputation? She stared at Zhu Yu. I know. Is it because I'm not beautiful enough? I can't compare to that which Wu Yili, so you don't like me. When Zhu Yu saw that she actually dragged Gu Shengyin into it, his expression turned ugly. Chapter 1378. As for the other people in the martial arts world, those who knew who Wu Yili was pricked up their ears to listen. This even involved the demon sect's leader? Zhu Yu stared coldly at Cheng Mingyue. Miss Cheng, Zhu Yu has grown up with you and has always treated you like a younger sister. I have never had any thoughts of overstepping my boundaries. This has nothing to do with anyone. Never had any thoughts of overstepping his boundaries. When these words reached Cheng Mingyue's ears, it meant that Zhu Yu had never liked her. She didn't believe it and screamed, I don't believe it. It must be that bitch Wu Yili who bewitched you. You men are all like this. Whenever you see a pretty girl, your soul will fly away. When she said this, many people's faces darkened. Cheng Mingyue's words had scolded everyone. Cheng Mingyue didn't know why, but she knew that once she said these words, her reputation in the martial arts world would be ruined. But she couldn't help it. As long as she saw the hypocritical and disgusting faces of those people, she couldn't help but want to vent all the violence and resentment in her heart. What's wrong with what I said? You men, all I have to do is smile and wave at him, and he'll crawl on me like a dog. He'll bite whoever I ask him to. Cheng Mingyue seemed to have thought of something and started giggling. At this moment, a young swordsman with a sword stood out from the crowd. He looked at Cheng Mingyue with undisguised disgust. I was once one of Fairy Mingyue's admirers. Thank you, Fairy Mingyue, for clearing my doubts today so that I will no longer be a dog in the future. After he finished speaking, he cupped his hands towards the people around him and turned to leave. After this person left, the other young people left one after another. They had all heard that Senior Cheng had passed away and were worried that Fairy Mingyue would be too sad, so they specially came here. But they didn't expect to hear such words. These young people were all hot-blooded men. How could they tolerate such a thing? Zhu Yu looked at the crazy Cheng Mingyue and sighed. He didn't care about Cheng Mingyue's shouts and turned to leave. As Cheng Mingyue watched the martial artists in the morning hall leave one by one, she felt incredibly happy. See, these were the hypocrites. Now that she had hit the nail on the head, one by one, none of them had the face to stay, right? She slowly leaned against her father's coffin and sat down. No one knew what she was thinking. He sat there until the middle of the night. Cheng Mingyue slowly raised her head. She remembered the events of the day. What had she done? Cheng Mingyue could not hide the fear on her face. Her words during the day might have offended most of the people in the Chinese world of martial artists, and she was even chased out of her sect. No, how could he do such a stupid thing? Cheng Mingyue knew very well that she wasn't wronged when she said those words, because those were her truest thoughts. But she would never tell anyone about those flowers. She must have been set up. That person was so vicious that he actually wanted her to lose her footing in the martial arts world of the Central Plains. But she couldn't do this. She was the high and mighty fairy Mingyu. How could she be defeated so easily? Chapter 1379. It was currently the wee hours of the morning. Cheng Mingyue's mind raced. She had to think of a way to redeem herself. Once she redeemed her reputation, she would slowly settle the score with that little bish. After thinking for a moment, she stood up and took a bronze mirror. Looking at the woman in the mirror with messy hair and bloodshot eyes, Cheng Mingyue's eyes flashed with disgust. This was not her. Cheng Mingyue carefully fetched some water and washed herself. She then changed into a set of plain-colored clothes and did not apply any makeup. Her pale complexion and dark circles were extremely obvious due to not having rested for several days. Looking at the delicate and pitiful woman in the mirror, Cheng Mingyue nodded her head in satisfaction. Only by looking like this would she be able to arouse the sympathy of others. Under the night sky, Cheng Mingyue knelt in front of Martial Union's main entrance. Zhu Yu had just woken up in the morning when he heard his subordinates report that Cheng Mingyue was kneeling in front of Martial Union's main entrance. She seemed to have come to ask for forgiveness. Ask for forgiveness? A cold glint flashed through Zhu Yu's eyes. After saying such words, would a simple sentence of asking for forgiveness be enough? Zhu Yu did not pay any attention to Cheng Mingyue. Instead, he turned around and went to see his master. Mu Qingfeng's complexion was still ugly. Anyone who knew that they had raised an ingrate would not be in a good mood. When Zhu Yu entered, he just happened to hear his master's angry rebuke, "Ask for forgiveness. Tell her to scram. This old man cannot accept her bow." Zhu Yu sighed. It seemed that his master already knew that Cheng Mingyue was outside. He lifted his leg and walked in. "Master, please calm down." When Mu Qingfeng saw Zhu Yu, his complexion became slightly better. However, his anger was still visible. "You've come." Mu Qingfeng looked at Zhu Yu. "You're not here to plead on behalf of that cruel and unscrupulous thing, right?" Zhu Yu shook his head. "Master, you've underestimated me. Am I, Zhu Yu, a person who cannot differentiate between right and wrong?" Mu Qingfeng nodded. "She said those words last night. Did she think that today's act would be enough to make up for what she said? Just as she said, she thinks that everyone in Jianghu is a fool." Speaking of this, Mu Qingfeng's anger rose again. Zhu Yu once again comforted his master. Cheng Mingyue knelt in front of Martial Union's main entrance. At this time, the sky was already bright, and the number of people outside gradually increased. Seeing such a beautiful woman in plain clothes kneeling here, it was natural for people to start discussing. Upon receiving the orders from above, Martial Union's guards completely ignored Cheng Mingyue. Seeing that no one was paying attention to her, Cheng Mingyue did not panic. She knew very well that in this situation, the weaker she appeared, the more others would sympathize with her. At a time like this, what he needed the most was the sympathy of others. Not long after, there would naturally be people who would have tender feelings for the fairer sex, who would seek justice for her. At that time, as long as he pretended to be sad and remorseful, there would always be people who would believe him. Cheng Mingyue already knew the temperament of these people like the back of her hand. However, no matter how much she calculated, she did not realize how serious the words she said last night were. The men in the martial arts world were indeed protective of the fairer sex. They were also very tolerant towards beauties. However, this did not mean that they were willing to become dogs. Those people were actually looking at the number one beauty in the martial arts world with mocking eyes. They were all wondering what kind of show she was going to put on this time. It was already 2 hours before daybreak. However, there was still no one who came out to speak for Cheng Mingyue. At this time, Cheng Mingyue started to panic. Things seemed to have gone beyond her expectations. Chapter 1380. This was completely different from what she had imagined. In her mind, with such a great beauty like her kneeling here, not to mention 2 hours, even if it took less than an hour, there should be people who couldn't help but come forward to ask about it. She knelt there, feeling a little apprehensive. However, her face still maintained that delicate and pitiful appearance. She refused to believe that she, Cheng Mingyue's charm, was so weak. However, Cheng Mingyue did not notice the ridicule in the eyes of the onlookers as they looked at her. What they were discussing was not the reason for such a great beauty to kneel here, but the shocking words she had said last night. Even if there were 1 or 2 people who did not know the truth and could not bear to look at her, they were pulled away by the people beside them and informed of the matter. After a round of information, the people who originally wanted to save the beauty started looking at Cheng Mingyue with strange expressions. Such a delicate and pitiful beauty actually said such unorthodox and disrespectful words. Indeed, one could not judge a book by its cover. In the martial arts world, seniority was the most important thing. The status of a master and disciple was also extremely important. The words that Cheng Mingyue had said to her master, Mu Qingfeng, yesterday were truly chilling. Another hour passed, and Cheng Mingyue's legs were already numb. Finally, a person appeared at the entrance of Martial Union. It was not her master, nor was it her senior brother. However, Cheng Mingyue recognized that this person was her senior brother's capable assistant. Since he had appeared, did that mean that her senior brother had not completely abandoned her? Cheng Mingyue's eyes suddenly lit up. However, in the next moment, the words that came out of that person's mouth caused Cheng Mingyue's heart to turn cold. Miss Cheng, you are kneeling in front of my Martial Union's entrance so early in the morning. This is not good for my Martial Union's reputation. Please return, that person said coldly with a monotonous tone. In reality, the fact that he did not directly scold her was already an act of self-restraint. Song Ren had been by Zhu Yu's side for many years. Naturally, he also harbored some unclear thoughts towards this beautiful junior sister of his master. However, he had always known his own identity. He knew that Cheng Mingyue's status was not something he could covet. Hence, he had always bitterly restrained his thoughts. Who would have thought that the people who admired Cheng Mingyue, were actually dogs in her heart? Moreover, they had all seen how much Senior Mu Qingfeng cared about this young disciple of his. But, in the eyes of this person, it had become a profitable thing to do? He, Song Ren, must be blind to fall for such a heartless and unscrupulous woman. Thus, under such circumstances, he could only maintain his politeness on the surface, and that was already the most he could do. However, this was not the result Cheng Mingyue wanted at all. She raised her head and her eyes were filled with tears. She bit the corner of her lips and looked very sad. Brother, my master, he really won't forgive me? Her swaying posture made it seem as if she would fall if the other party gave her a negative answer. If it was the Song Run of the past, his heart would ache to see such an attitude. But now, he just watched coldly as Cheng Mingyue put on an act. She even called him Big Brother? He had been by his master's side for so many years. As long as this Miss Cheng had the heart, it was impossible for her to not know his name. He had really been blinded in the past. He actually did not see through this point. Chapter 1381. He stood at the entrance of Martial Union and coldly said, Senior Mu has already said that Miss Cheng is no longer his disciple. Miss Cheng, don't call him master anymore. Cheng Mingyue's heart turned cold. She knew that sometimes, the attitude of the person serving beside you was an indication of the master's attitude. Looking at this person's appearance, her master and senior brother were really not going to give her any face? Cheng Mingyue only felt a chill in her heart. In any case, they had been master and disciple for more than 10 years. Yet, at this time, they could actually bear to see her like this. Cheng Mingyue had never thought about what kind of relationship she had talked about when she pointed at Mu Qingfeng and said those words last night. Thus, It could be said that the selfish people in this world all had the same characteristic. They would always remember the bad things of others, but could not see the good things of others and their own bad things. No matter what kind of thoughts she had in her heart, Qing Mingyue still put on a pale face on the surface. She gritted her teeth and said, "Since master and senior brother are not willing to forgive Mingyue, and Mingyue has already lost her father. Now that I'm going to lose my master and senior brother, what's the point of living in this world?" As she spoke, she acted as if she was going to crash into a stone pillar at the side. "Stop, Miss Qing." Song Ren still had that cold look on his face. He looked at Qing Mingyue, his gaze devoid of any warmth. "If Miss Qing wants to die, please find another place. If you kill yourself in front of Martial Union's entrance, those who don't know will think that Martial Union is bullying you and do something to you." Qing Mingyue's body was grabbed by two people. She looked at Song Ren, who was standing at the entrance, in disbelief. She was already in this state, so why was this man still so indifferent? She could not help but touch her face suspiciously. There was nothing wrong with it? She shouted without care, "Why won't you let me see my master and senior brother? What are you trying to do?" "Miss Qing." Song Ren's face finally sank. The way he looked at Qing Mingyue was as if he was looking at something filthy. "Miss Qing, do you need me to remind you what kind of disrespectful words you said last night in front of all the martial artists?" His gaze was so cold that Qing Mingyue couldn't help but shudder. Her arrogance unconsciously weakened. That's just because I was too sad and didn't mean it. Unintentional words." Song Ren sneered. "I'm afraid these unintentional words are Miss Qing's true heartfelt words?" He then instructed his subordinates, "All of you, stand guard at the entrance. If Miss Qing wishes to seek death, stop her. Do not dirty my Martial Union's land. Of course, once Martial Union is out of the picture, it is none of our business." After he finished speaking, he turned around and left with a flick of his sleeves, as if he didn't want to see this repulsive woman again. It was only then that Qing Mingyue was truly exhausted. Master and senior brother really wouldn't care about him anymore. She had never been so clear about this matter. She turned around and saw the way the crowd looked at her for the first time. What she saw in front of her eyes made her widen her eyes. It was not the sympathetic and pitiful look she thought it was, but the real mockery and sarcasm. These people were all laughing at her. Chapter 1382. Qing Mingyue stared at these people with wide eyes. Among these people, she recognized some of them, but she did not recognize the majority of them. However, these people, without exception, were all looking at her with malicious gazes. Qing Mingyue tried her best to maintain the demeanor of a martial arts family's young miss and coldly said, "Everyone hitting someone when they're down isn't something a real man would do, right?" It would have been better if she did not say this. The moment these words left her mouth, some people in the crowd sneered. "So Miss Qing also knows what a real man is? I thought Miss Qing didn't even know how to write the word shame." Shame is such a complicated word. How would Miss Qing know? I think she probably doesn't even recognize words like face, right? I heard the words she said last night clearly. If I had such a disciple, I would have cleaned up the sect on the spot. How could I allow her to jump around again today? Isn't that so? She was already expelled from the sect yesterday, and today, she came here acting pitiful as if nothing had happened. She even threatened to kill herself. Miss Qing, let me advise you. If you really want to die, go home and do it. Don't put on an act here. Every sentence was like a sharp knife stabbing into Qing Mingyue's heart. It wasn't like this. Why were these people looking at her with such gazes? Why were they saying such cold and heartless words to her? Shouldn't they be looking at her tears, lamenting in their hearts, and facing a common enemy with her? Qing Mingyue could not bear such gazes. She felt that she could not stay here any longer. She could only cover her face with her sleeves and hurriedly leave. Seeing that there was no more drama to watch, the crowd surrounding the entrance of Martial Arts Union dispersed. Qing Mingyue was secretive all the way home because she realized that people were pointing at her and whispering to each other on the way home. Qing Mingyue, who had never experienced such humiliation before, only wanted to return home and close the door, not letting anyone see her. However, before she reached home, she saw her personal maid, Xiao Tang. Why did Xiao Tang come out? She felt strange. When Xiao Tang saw her, it was as if she saw her savior. "Miss, you're finally back." Cheng Mingyue faintly had a bad feeling. What's wrong? Xiao Tang's eyes were filled with tears. Our residence's main doors have all been smashed. Cheng Mingyue was infuriated when she heard this. The gate was the face of a mansion. Who had such a huge grudge against the Cheng family? Who did it? Xiao Tang's tone was evasive. This servant saw that there were many people. Cheng Mingyue glanced at it and didn't say anything. She hurried back home. From afar, she saw the smashed door of her house and many people surrounding it. "Miss, don't go there." Xiao Tang tugged at her sleeve uneasily. Cheng Mingyue felt that something was wrong. She turned around and asked, "What's wrong?" Xiao Tang bit her lips and said, "Those people came to cause trouble for young Mississippi." This servant heard them scolding young Miss. Cheng Mingyue's heart skipped a beat. What are they cursing about? Xiao Tang's tone became even more cautious. They scolded Miss, deceived their master and betrayed their ancestors, ungrateful pigs and dogs. She didn't dare to finish her sentence. However, these few were enough to deal a blow to Cheng Mingyue. Her body swayed a little, but she couldn't resist the hesitation in her heart. It's over, it's over. This was the only feeling Cheng Mingyue had at this moment. She, Cheng Mingyue, was truly finished in the Central Plains pugilistic world. Chapter 1383. Cheng Mingyue was sick. This time, she wasn't pretending to be pitiful to gain sympathy. She was really sick. She hadn't been sick for a long time. Cheng Mingyue, who was lying on the bed in a daze because of the fever, thought in a daze. She was born as a proud daughter of heaven. Her father treated her like a pearl and raised her. He was very nervous about the slightest disturbance. How could he give her a chance to fall sick? Later, she became the disciple of the #1 expert in the martial arts world and the junior sister of the chief of the martial arts world. More people flattered her. She thought of the last time she fell sick. It was a few years ago. It was just a small cold. The servants in the mansion were busy. Her father looked at her tirelessly. He even invited a few famous doctors in the martial arts world. In the martial arts world, who didn't envy her, Fairy Mingyue? But now, Xiao Tang came in with a bowl of black medicine. She looked helpless. "Young miss, those doctors heard that the master of the Qing mansion was sick and refused to come over. This is the medicine for typhoid that I bought myself. Please be more particular." When she came in with the bowl of medicine, Cheng Mingyue clearly saw a few red and swollen blisters on Xiao Tang's hands. "You brewed this medicine yourself? Where are those rough servants?" Cheng Mingyue asked angrily. Xiao Tang avoided her gaze and said timidly, "Ever since the master passed away, the servants in the house ran away and ransomed." She didn't finish her sentence, but Cheng Mingyue already knew what she meant. Now, there were probably not many people in the Qing mansion. Cheng Mingyue's expression suddenly calmed down. She took the bowl of medicine and drank it. "I know. I don't need anyone to serve me. You can go and rest." Xiao Tang left. Cheng Mingyue watched her leave. Xiao Tang had been by her side since she was young. She was a servant who served the young miss. Naturally, she had never done any heavy work. Today was probably the first time she brewed medicine. She lay on the bed and looked at the top of the bed with her eyes wide open. Tears finally fell from the corners of her eyes and slowly soaked the pillow. Something big happened in the martial arts world of the Central Plains. At the Martial Arts World Assembly, the current chief of the martial arts world, Zhu Yu, revealed a shocking news. He and the cult master of the devil cult were in love with each other and were about to get married. "I am aware that I am no longer able to assume the position of Wulin Alliance Master, and I would like to ask my fellow Wulin Alliance Masters to choose another Wulin Alliance Master who is of virtue and prestige. If it was any other day, if someone exposed that they had an affair with the cult master of the devil sect, they would be condemned by the public. However, Zhu Yu had accumulated a lot of prestige and was highly respected by the people of Wulin. Moreover, his actions were too calm, so calm that no one could criticize his actions. He had fallen in love with the cult leader of the devil cult, and had volunteered not to be the Wulin Union head. What could you do to him? As a result, the martial arts circle convention ended in an extremely strange atmosphere. What was most shocking was that Juyu had actually used his own name to send out invitations to all the martial artists present when the martial arts tournament ended. Wasn't he afraid of triggering a murder case? Many of the martial artists were dumbfounded by Zhu Yu's unusual approach. "Yili, I'm sorry." Zhu Yu held Gu Xingyin's hand and apologized. Gu Xingyin turned to look at him. "What's there to be sorry about?" Zhu Yu looked apologetic. "I said that I would give you a lively and grand wedding. However, in the martial arts world of the Central Plains, I'm afraid our wedding won't receive many blessings." Chapter 1384. After all, the martial arts world in the Central Plains had been holding a grudge against the demon sect for a long time, and it was not easy to erase it. Gu Xingyin laughed out loud. "I thought you had done something wrong to me. Just this small matter? Marriage is just a matter between two people. How big of an impact would it have on us whether other people give us their blessings or not?" Juyu laughed as well. "You're right. It doesn't matter if other people give us their blessings or not, we will still grow old together." The location of their wedding was one of Mu Qingfeng's big houses. This was specially requested by Mu Qingfeng. By doing so, he was showing the world that he was not dissatisfied with the marriage between his disciple and the demon sect's leader. In fact, he even approved of it. The number of guests at the wedding was much more than what Zhu Yu had expected. First of all, there was the demon sect. Although the members of the demon sect were not satisfied with the fact that their leader's wedding was not held at the demon sect's headquarters, they still sent a large group of people to attend their leader's wedding. Just the disciples of the demonic sect alone were enough to cause a great commotion. Not to mention the people from the martial arts world who had accepted Zhu Yu's invitation. Initially, they were all in a wait-and-see mode. However, after a while, they thought that it would be good to take this opportunity to see the legendary demon sect. Besides, there would definitely be many people who would not go because of their status. If they went, wouldn't they be able to impress Mu Qingfeng and hero Zhu Yu? Perhaps there were other reasons too. All in all, when the wedding started, the tables and chairs prepared by Zhu Yu were almost not enough. Fortunately, there were backups. Otherwise, it would be embarrassing. However, Zhu Yu was happy. No matter what these people were thinking, at least on the surface, they were here to give their blessings to him and Yi Li. "Look, there are so many people giving us their blessings when we are together," he whispered in Gu Xingyin's ear. Gu Xingyin looked at the man who was lying through his teeth. She thought for a while and nodded in agreement. Those people were here to attend the wedding. Weren't they here to give their blessings? As for those who came for the demon sect's leader, they finally saw her in person. The moment they saw Gu Xingyin, they all understood why Alliance leader Zhu Yu liked such a woman. Nonsense. Which man wouldn't like such a beauty? What? You're not moved by her beauty? Bullshit. Usually, if a man said that he was not moved by beauty, it was only because he had someone he loved. Most of the time, it was because that beauty was not beautiful enough to attract him. It was no wonder that the former junior sister of the Wulin Alliance master would be jealous. The female guests present sighed inwardly as they looked at the bride's face, which was even more beautiful than the lights and moonlight. Such beauty was simply every woman's nightmare. Gu Xingyin and Zhu Yu didn't care about what the guests were thinking. They were just devoutly following the ancient ceremony and bowing to the heavens and earth. Then, under the blessings of everyone, they became a true husband and wife. The moonlight tonight was very beautiful, but to Zhu Yu, everything in front of him had lost its color and luster. In his eyes, there was only the person smiling sweetly in front of him. He looked at Gu Xingyin with satisfaction, his face full of tenderness and joy. "Yi Li, I finally have you by my side." Gu Xingyin smiled faintly. "Silly, my heart has been firmly tied to your body since a long, long time ago." Chapter 1385. Cheng Mingyue lay on the bed and vaguely heard the sound of music. A strange feeling rose in her heart. Shouting, "Is there someone holding a wedding outside?" She had been lying in bed for a long time and her illness was not getting better. For such a long time, the only person she had seen was Shouting. Those ungrateful people saw that she was in dire straits and all of them wanted to climb up the social ladder. Thinking of this, Qing Mingyue was angry. As for Xiao Tang, who had always stayed by his side and never abandoned him, his heart was filled with gratitude. Xiao Tang heard her words and showed a complicated expression. She lowered her head and did not speak. Seeing her like this, Qing Mingyue was even more certain that something was going on. She said, "Xiaoting, tell me the truth. What's going on?" Xiaoting lowered her head and said quickly, "Miss, today is Hero Zhu Yu's big day." Zhu Yu's big day? Cheng Mingyue was in a daze for a moment before she realized that Zhu Yu was her senior brother. He was actually getting married? Cheng Mingyue suddenly thought of something and asked sternly, "Who is the bride?" When she said this, a beautiful face flashed in her mind, but she quickly rejected it. It was impossible. Senior brother was the chief of Wulin. How could he marry someone from the devil sect, Hero Zhu Yu's new wife? She is the leader of the devil sect. Xiao Tong's voice broke her imagination. Hearing the words leader of the devil sect, Qing Mingyue suddenly became agitated. Who did you say his bride is? The leader of the devil sect? How is that possible? Senior brother is the chief of Wulin. He can't marry someone who is the leader of the devil sect. Xiao Tang said softly, but Hero Zhu Yu is no longer the chief of Wulin. What did you say? Cheng Mingyue turned her head and looked at Xiao Tang. Say it again? Xiao Tang lowered her head and said softly, Hero Zhu Yu said himself that he is no longer capable of being the chief of Wulin. He has already resigned. Now the Wulin is discussing who will take over as the chief of Wulin. The room fell silent for a moment. After a while, a mournful laughter rang out in the dark room. "Ha, my good senior brother. For her, he even gave up the honor of being the Wulin Alliance's leader. What am I? Then what am I?" Cough, 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 cough. Xiao Tang looked at her worriedly and comforted her softly. "Miss, please take care of yourself." A bowl of medicine came crashing down and landed right on Xiao Tang's forehead. Get lost, all of you." A stinging sensation rose from the place where he was hit. He didn't know if his skin was broken. Xiao Tang lowered her eyes and did not say anything. She picked up the bowl on the ground and left. Cheng Mingyue spent the whole afternoon staring at the ceiling in a daze. She didn't know what she was thinking. She hadn't looked in the mirror for a long time because she was afraid of seeing her hideous appearance. "Young miss, this servant has made some porridge. Would you like to have some?" Xiao Tang pushed open the door and walked in with a tray. Cheng Mingyue turned to look at her. This servant girl was the only one who was still loyal to her after her downfall. Cheng Mingyue thought for a moment and reached out to take the porridge from Xiao Tang's hands. She picked up the spoon and drank 2 mouthfuls. There was minced meat in the porridge. It was obvious that it was stewed with care. It tasted fresh and fragrant. Cheng Mingyue smiled at Xiao Tang and said, "Xiao Tang, thank you so much for all this time." Xiao Tang lowered her eyes and did not say anything. Cheng Mingyue wanted to say something, but she suddenly felt a sharp pain in her stomach. Chapter 1386. Cheng Mingyue no longer had the strength to hold the bowl of porridge in her hand. The white and sticky porridge spilled onto the blanket. If it was any other time, Xiao Tang would have quickly gotten up to wipe it off. But right now, she just stood there and watched, not moving at all. Cheng Mingyue felt a sharp pain in her stomach, as if there were countless sharp weapons twisting inside. She raised her head with cold sweat and looked in disbelief at Xiao Tang, who was quietly standing at the side with her head bowed. "You poisoned me?" Xiao Tang did not make a sound, nor did she deny it. Dark red blood flowed down from the corner of Cheng Mingyue's mouth. She did not use her hand to wipe it away because there was no end to it. She just stared at Xiao Tang and asked, "Why?" She thought that even if she fell into such a situation, there would still be someone by her side who would not leave her. She even thought that when her body was better, she would sell this residence and take Xiao Tang to live somewhere else. However, no matter how much she thought about it, She would never have thought that Xiao Tang would actually poison her. Why? Xiao Tang raised her head. Cheng Mingyue saw that her eyes were deathly still. These days, there was no one to take care of Father Cheng. The servants either ran away or left. In the end, there was only this servant left. Xiao Tang stretched out her hand for Cheng Mingyue to see. Cheng Mingyue saw that her fair palm was full of potholes and bruises, and even broken skin. Someone once asked Xiao Tang to leave with them. Xiao Tang could not bear to see young miss lying in bed alone without anyone to take care of you, so Xiao Tang did not go with them. Look at these hands. This servant has to cook for you and wipe you down every day. I also have to worry about people with bad intentions coming to rob this residence. During the day, I have to clean up the trash and discarded items in this residence. But what did Xiao Tang get in return? It was you who beat and scolded me. Xiao Tang still had a calm expression. In Cheng Mingyue's eyes, this expression was even more terrifying than a face full of anger. The person with no desires was often the most terrifying. Cheng Mingyue felt her body gradually losing strength. Her mind was already a bit dizzy. She showed a smile and tried to make herself seem more sincere. Xiao Tang, I know I was wrong. I will definitely treat you well in the future. Can you give me the antidote first? Xiao Tang raised her head and suddenly showed a smile. No, there is no antidote for this. Young miss, you can rest in peace. Cheng Mingyue's eyes widened as the pain in her abdomen reached its limit. She couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood and fell down powerlessly. Xiao Tang looked at this scene coldly. She walked forward and adjusted Cheng Mingyue's posture before tucking her in. From afar, Cheng Mingyue looked as though she had fallen asleep. After that, she turned around and left the room without hesitation. When Gu Xingyin received the system's message, it was at an unspeakable moment. Zhu Yu gasped when she saw how agitated she was. What's wrong with you? He bit Gu Xingyin's ear as if punishing her. Gu Xingyin shook his head, and his arms tightened around her neck to make himself close to her. It's all right. Feeling her enthusiasm, Zhu Yu curled the corners of his mouth and bent down. It was the wedding night, the time when the mandarin ducks intertwined their necks. Gu Xingyin threw those irrelevant things to the back of her mind and concentrated on enjoying the passion brought by her lover. The red candles in the bridal chamber burned until dawn. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.